All right, so this meeting is being recorded. Let's reshare the screen. Okay, so we're picking up in the story of Gawain and the Green Knight. We've talked about chivalry, we've talked about time, and then I remembered that I wasn't recording this, so you can read the notes and pick up with the challenge, which is where we are in class. My apologies to you in the future that I forgot to start the recording a little sooner. Anyway, they're all sitting around getting drunk at Christmas because that's what you do. I think I may have a little eggnog left if I would like to share some. And the greenness in the middle of winter is part of a pagan recognition that now that the days are shortest, now that the sun is in the sky the least amount, and they're getting pretty close to the Arctic Circle and the area where it's dark all the time. It's dark a lot more than it is here in Louisiana, even in England. And so it's dark a lot, but you go out and you get some green stuff and you bring it in. That's where the Christmas tree idea comes from, but also holly, also mistletoe, which is also green. And the knight comes in, he's carrying holly. He's associated with greenness, that is the renewal of life, and yet he gives this rather spooky challenge. Oh, we're in green. That he wants a game. You're beardless boys. You don't need a real fight, but let's play a Christmas game. You take one stroke at my head, and I'll take in a year one stroke at yours. And to all of their surprise and consternation, after Gawain, who, it's a minute there, it looks like it's going to have to be King Arthur to step up, which would be a shameful thing for all the knights to sit by while their leader put himself at risk. So Gawain finally said, I'll play. And he gives the guy a nice stroke of his axe, or I guess probably a sword. Anyway, chops off his head, and in which case he's now carrying his head off and says, I'll see you at the Green Chapel 1 year from today. And it's chilling to everybody because they all know, Gawain included, that trick is not available to them. And one other thing that we mentioned a minute ago, but we mentioned here, that Troy fell. This is the degenerative notion of time, and it fell because Paris Alexandros, Prince of Troy, had run off with his host's wife, Helen. His host was Menelaus. There are these rules for Zida and Greek hospitium, in Latin. And one of those rules is you don't run off with your host's wife. So this is going to come back later in the story. It's foreshadowing what's to come. All right, so the year kind of quickly passes until they get to All Hallows Day on November 1st. Then it's time to start the search. Of course, we think of that as the day after Halloween. But November 1st is an important milestone every year. And Gawain is starting to gear up to face the night. It's time to go. England's not that small. It's small compared to us. But when you're riding a horse and you don't know where you're going, and you're a guy and can't stop to ask, well, then it could take a minute. And then we stop the narrative for an ekphrasis, which is a great Greek word that might be on a quiz sometime. An ekphrasis is where the narration stops in order to describe an object. Sometimes it's a picture on the wall, but traditionally, going back to the Iliad and the Aeneid and the shield of Heracles, it's usually a shield. It's a fancy shield for a fancy knight or a fancy soldier. warrior who's about to go into battle, and it's very symbolic of who they are. So the shield of Achilles in the Iliad, the shield of which paints the portrait of peace and war. The Aeneid points to Rome's glorious future and the Battle of Actium between Julius Caesar and Mark Antony and Cleopatra, and it's right there on the shield. The shield of Athena in the Parthenon, what does it have? I think a gorgon. And then a bunch of Greek guys fighting for Athens. And what was on the shield of Heracles? I can't remember. It's been a minute since I looked at it. But what's on Gawain's shield is a pentangle, 5-pointed star. That's going to symbolize 5 things about Gawain. Now, Gawain, you might note here, has a reputation as a ladies' man, both within the story and in general. So there are Galahad types who are very spiritual. We don't want to put a Galahad type in this situation because it wouldn't be a realistic challenge for him to overcome. Oh yes, of course I can say no to sex because I'm Galahad. No, this is their version of Elvis. You know, he gets around a lot. He's been with a lot of ladies. So the path to virtue is a great struggle for him. It's not going to be easy. All right, so there are 5 5s in the pentangle. I wonder if we could find a picture of Gawain's pentangle. Okay, that's the outside. And of course, the inside, I think is Mary, right? Who is supposed to represent purity. And that's the thing he has trouble with. That's to a lot of people. Okay, so 5 senses faultless. I guess that would be taste, smell, touch, sight, and hearing. And they're all good. Unlike myself, who am old, and my eyes are dim with age, and my hearing's not that great. My taste is beginning to go. That's why old people use more pepper in their, sometimes when you eat something that one of us has made as a young person and your senses are working well, it's like, oh my gosh, this is overpowering. Well, not to us. Anyway, the 5 fingers of course, his right hand. Now the 5 fingers of his left hand didn't fail either, but then that would have been 10, which breaks the rhythm, right? Okay, and then the stigmata, the 5 wounds of Christ. Palms are 2 in the feet, and then 1 in the side. The 5 joys of Mary, the Annunciation is the announcing to Mary by the angel that, guess what, you're going to have a baby. The Nativity, of course, what that is at Christmas, the resurrection after Easter, the ascension of Jesus to heaven after his resurrection. And then finally, at the end of Mary's life, she was assumed into heaven, which is the same as ascension, except she's not the Son of God. She's the mother of the Son of God. So we need a different word for it. So those are her 5 joys. And then, of course, Mary gets the inside of the shield as well as the patron of purity. And then finally, Gawain's 5 virtues. Boundless beneficence. I love a word like beneficence. Does anybody have any idea what beneficence means?
I've heard it, but I have no idea.
Right. Benevolence means goodwill. So bene is good. Volo is well. Bene Facio is from two Latin words, bene, again, good. And facio is to do, to make something. So beneficence is going a step beyond benevolence, where you actually do good things. I can feel benevolent all day toward you and not be worth a damn because I'm not acting on it. There was a commercial years ago, I think it was the United Way, and it was showing everybody's excuse for not giving. And one guy gets up on there, I think it was Peter Ustinov. I believe in giving moral support. So this is not moral support. This is there with his five senses, his five fingers, his devotion to Christ and Mary, and doing good. Not just wishing well, but doing good things for other people. Second thing is brotherly love. Philadelphia is the Greek word for that, which has come over, we use it for cities and stuff. But, loving one's brother in a Christian way, the pure mind, which he's kind of working on, right? And the final two are good manners and compassion. Now, here's the thing about virtues. As long as every virtue in the boat is rowing in the same direction, you've got a pretty much easy time of it, at least morally speaking. But what happens when one virtue is rowing one way and the other virtue is rowing another way? We're going to get back to that in a minute. All right, so he goes through the process of which Joseph Campbell has identified: separation, initiation, return. And here's the full definition on page 30 of The Hero with the Thousand Faces. A hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered and a decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow men. In this case, of course, he encounters the Green Knight and he comes back with the Green Garter. So he goes out, they kind of gloss over a lot of his adventures along the way. But he encounters snakes, bulls, bears, boars, giants, etc. Man, that's a lot of adventure. And he does his prayers. Now, we've got the English for those of us who skipped Latin class, but he would have said it in Latin: Pater noster quies in coelis, Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. So the Our Fathers and the Hail Marys, which many Christians still say to this day, mostly in their own language, primary language, but some people still do the Latin prayers. Signs himself 3 times, that's the sign of the cross, 3 times. And then a prayer to Saint Julian, the patron saint of hospitality. And so, yeah, you have to find a friendly person to take you in, and you hope that they will not kill you or do something terrible to you. Kind of a magic castle. Looks like it was built out of paper, just kind of a Walt Disney kind of castle to indicate that we are in fairy tale realm land. Now, fairies in this time are as big as people. They're often very sexy. I think the one that we're involved with here is Morgan Le Fay, the half-sister of King Arthur, who's trying to teach them a lesson. And so she has enchanted the castle and the knight in the castle. The guy that he meets is the same guy he will meet in the challenge, although he does not recognize him. Now, he is the knight Errant. And error comes from a Latin word with 2 meanings. One is wandering around. So a knight errant is one out searching for adventure, right? I'm just going to wander around rather aimlessly, as opposed to a bunch of knights going to war or a single knight going somewhere with a purpose. And he's been wandering around, getting into adventures with all these various things and people that he's encountered. But error also means to go astray. So he's in danger here of going astray. Okay, so they celebrate Christmas. He tells the knight and his lady about his quest. And so the knight says, well, you need to rest up for your big quest. So I'm going out hunting because it's Christmas. I don't know about you guys, but my whole life I would go home to my grandparents in South Mississippi. And all the real men in the family, which excluded me because I hate getting up early and hunting, but every day they would get their, however many layers of clothes we needed. Sometimes it was cold, sometimes not. Off they would go hunting and see what they could find in the woods. I think it was mostly my grandmother's idea to get them out of the house. So the Green Knight is going to go out and hunt every day. Meanwhile, Gawain's going to stay home, and they have a kind of a friendly wager between them. I will give you whatever I catch hunting, and you will give me whatever you catch here at the house. Meanwhile, Gawain is in the sights of the lady of the house. She's heard his reputation. Imagine having Elvis come to stay with you, look young, sexy Elvis. And you've heard this guy gets around, and you want to use some of that. And so she starts flirting with him. And he speaks courteously to her. Now, we've talked a little bit about this word courtesy. It's related to the word court. You can see buried in the middle of courtesy is court. And so the way you behave at court is, following these rules of chivalry. And there are certain rules of chivalry toward other men, but there are also rules of chivalry toward ladies. There's a way you treat a lady with respect, but also with a bit of flirtatiousness. And so this sets up the 3 days hunt. The first day he hunts an hind, which is a deer, right? A female deer? Or is it a male deer? What animal is a hind? A female deer. Okay, good. Especially a red deer. So there. Which in medieval times symbolized lust for whatever reason. The boar are the, well, it's a wild pig, wild hog. But those are pretty damn tough. If you've ever come across one in the woods, they aren't to be trifled with. And back then, of course, they killed these things not with guns, and they didn't fly around in helicopters and lean out and shoot things. They fought them with sticks, with bits of metal on them. So yeah, it was a risk to go up against a boar. And a boar in the medieval period symbolizes pride. The fox symbolizes, well, craftiness, but also greed. And that's the 3 days for the man of the house who's out hunting. Of course, he knows, because this is all a setup, right? This is all a test to see if Gawain will resist temptation. Now, here is where the different virtues of Gawain come into conflict, because his boundless beneficence, his brotherly love, and his pure mind are telling him he must resist temptation. Yes, she's beautiful. Yes, she's got most of her clothes off. Yes, she's in your bedroom, leaning over you. But these virtues are telling you to say no. But what about these virtues? I mean, you know, when a lady comes to you and she wants to be with you, it's just bad manners to say no. And we saw what happened to poor old Lanville when he said no. He said no rather too firmly, and as much as saying no got him in trouble, I think it was even more the way he did it, because he was very disrespectful of Guinevere. Whereas Gawain, his manners never fail him. His compassion, well, you know, if somebody just really wants to have sex with you, isn't it the compassionate thing to do? To go ahead, you know, you've got a reputation, but he recognizes that, you know, he's got an obligation to his host as well as to Mary, who he's praying to get him through this. And so he tries to turn her down, but in a way that is both compassionate and with good manners. So this is where he differs from Lanville. He doesn't insult her. He doesn't talk trash about her. He's very courteous, very mannerly, and the stuff that he's supposed to be. So the narration does not want him to repeat the crime of Paris and bring down Camelot. That's going to be Lancelot and Guinevere who do that. And so he has to restrain himself. And she's like, oh, well, you must think I'm ugly. I might have to tie you up. It's just all very highly charged. And eventually she does manage to kiss him. And then when the host gets home, he kisses the host. And that's the other reason he probably doesn't want to go through and have sex with her, because then when the host got home, he would have to have sex with him. Finally, on the last day, we up it a notch with a magic girl. She says, oh, this is a magic girl. And you remember there was a big thing in the Middle Ages with all these tournaments and stuff. Your lady love would give you a token, like a handkerchief or something, a scarf. Only she's giving him a girl. She's giving him some of her underwear and saying, oh, this is magic underwear. It'll keep you from getting wounded. And he's just superstitious enough that instead of giving it to his host, he keeps it for himself. And so this is his failure. It wasn't a failure to the point of having sex with the host's wife, but it was a failure to the point of holding on to the green girdle. All right. What is a Danish axe? I know what Danish pastry is. Okay, those look pretty impressive. Although not so much the guy holding it. We need somebody a bit more Viking-like. Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, that'll do it. I like that one. So he's out there cranking it up, just grinding it, getting it nice and sharp. Now, stories in the West tend to take place around the number 3. Things happen 3 times. So we have 3 swings of the axe. The first time, Gawain flinches. The knight says, whoa, I held still. Why aren't you? The second time, he draws back himself, basically with the excuse of, well, I thought you were going to flinch. The third time he swings, he barely scrapes his neck, and he jumps up and says, okay, I have kept my pledge. If you want another go at me, I'm going to be fighting back. And so instead of fighting back, the knight explains what is going on. The first time was the agreement they made. The second time, the 2 kisses he gave his host, again kept his word. Third time, his partial failure in keeping the girdle. So that was the degree of his failure, and so he kept his life. But then he's ashamed because as a knight, he's broken his word. And what is more important to a knight than his word and his honor? We live in a time where these have very little status anymore, but at the time, your word was your bond. That's what you had. So he keeps the girdle as a sign of his weakness in the area of temptation. He goes back and ashamedly tells the knights what happened and how he failed. And they recognized that they could all fail in a similar way. And so they established the Order of the Green Garter, which to this day in 2021 is still the highest order in England as far as knight stuff goes. So if you get the Order of the Green Garter, I think it's called, then yeah, that's way up there. But it has a kind of humble beginning to it. And also they mentioned, okay, it was Morgan Le Fay who was behind this, and we managed to avoid, at least to this point, the sin that happened at Troy and Sparta, although eventually they will be brought down by similar situations. All right, any questions? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. How do I end the recording? I think it just stopped. Well, here we go.